Good morning. My name is Carl Cox. I'm a private attorney appointed by Clackamas County as land use hearings officer with authority to conduct this hearing and make a determination in this matter. This hearing is being recorded by the county, and that hearing record is available through the county. For the record, today is April 3rd, 2025. This is a public hearing concerning a consolidated application Z01 Z0013, Z0014 for a major subdivision associated habitat conservation area and a zone change related to approval, if it's approved, of the subdivision. I have several important things to state for the record. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing, which means two important things for those participating in this hearing. First, all of the criteria that can be used in reaching a decision have been identified in the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the criteria identified in the staff report or other relevant criteria found in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulation that the person believes applies to the decision. Accordingly, please direct your testimony to a relevant approval criterion. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Once final, this decision may be appealed to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. I've not received any ex parte contact in this matter, meaning no one contacted me outside of these proceedings to try to persuade me concerning a fact or issue present in this matter. I did download and review all of the materials that the county publicly posted to its website in advance of this hearing, including exhibits 1 through 35, and that includes the staff report, the applications with various attachments and subsequent supporting documents, and concerns that were also submitted by neighbors and concerned citizens. So I did have an opportunity to review all of those materials in advance of this hearing to prepare for this hearing. Further, I've considered issues of bias and conflict of interest and have determined that I do not have any bias or conflict of interest in this matter. Prior to closing the record in this matter, I will provide an opportunity for participants to request an opportunity to keep the record open to submit additional materials, and the county staff report included such a request. So we'll have an opportunity before I close the record to discuss that. At this time, I'm going to ask that the county provide an explanation concerning participation in this hearing via the Zoom platform.
Okay, thank you. This public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording to the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will use the raise hand feature. Attendees on PC and iPad, you have the raise hand button on the Zoom bar, top or bottom, depending on the device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is your time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, email written testimony to bblessing@clackamas.us or mail it to Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon 97045. The staff contact email address is also available on the webpage where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address by email to the staff contact of the application or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. The order of proceedings will be that I will ask that the county begin the hearing by presenting the county staff report and any related presentation that the county has, an opportunity for the applicant to submit additional information, testimony, or evidence that the county, that the applicant wishes to present in support of each of these applications, followed by an opportunity by members of the general public to participate in this hearing, making statements, presenting witness testimony, or evidence that they wish me to consider. Mr. Blessing, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Okay. My name is Ben Blessing, Senior Planner, Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, Department of Transportation and Development. This is a 44-lot subdivision / planned unit development, or PUD, an associated zone change and habitat conservation area, or HCA, development permit. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, just a quick look at the vicinity map for the surrounding road connectivity and other surrounding lots. So the lot's 10 acres. It's between two developed areas, both subdivisions, and there will be connectivity through the site, which will show on subsequent slides. And it doesn't show relief on this aerial, but there is a small stream that flows through the southeast corner of the lot, and then an associated forested hillside. The applicants preserved much of that, which we'll look at on the slide showing the environmental layers here in a few slides. But you do have a creek that flows towards the south, towards the Clackamas River. You don't see it on the aerial, but it's not that much further south of the image you're staring at here. Couple of structures on site, those will be removed, but otherwise it's a vacant lot, and it's as you can see, fairly treed.
Mm-hmm. And that stream is in the southeast corner. I think there was a typo in one of the reports.
Yes, exactly, southeast. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the subdivision layout. I'll go over some highlights next, but there's your connectivity from Faircrest to Hemmon, I believe it is, and a public road connection with sidewalks, and there's going to be a stub to the south property line for potential future development, and there's not a requirement to the north because it's already developed. And so you have your open space tract called Tract D that's preserving the lots. You've got I think you have at least, you have two access drives that are providing access to some lots to the north, as well as private roads. And you have a stormwater pond that's in another tract, and the lots will be for single family homes. So some important notes about the applicant's additions after public notice was sent. The stormwater pond was enlarged to accommodate surface water from impervious surfaces. So the applicant made slight changes to the stormwater pond, which made slight changes to a few tracks and a couple lots, I believe. I'm sorry, a tract and two tracks and a couple of lots, I believe it is. It's all in the applicant's narrative for the specifics, but they were not large changes. They were just small changes, not affecting the alignment, not affecting the lot size issue, nothing like that. But they did make some slight changes to the stormwater pod to comply with Clackamas Water Environmental Services, water quality standards, and stormwater treatment standards. Those exhibits are listed. They're in the record if you'd like to look at them, or anyone would like to look at them. Another issue, the applicant did provide an updated traffic study. Correspondence with county traffic engineering and some other interested parties is in the record. That the applicant provided a traffic study on March 26th, and our county traffic engineer concurred with it. The scoping was accurate, and there were no warrants for additional infrastructure or anything like that. So staff made an initial recommendation for denial, but the applicant was able to get the traffic impact study submitted. And so as my memo stated in Exhibit 35, I believe, staff now recommends conditions of approval. And as Mr. Cox mentioned, we request to leave the record open for at least 1 week if possible. So some subdivision highlights. Again, single family homes are proposed. There are 44 lots. The open space tracts will contain the stream channels and that, again, forested hillside open space area. This is a planned unit development. So with subdivision and a planned unit development, you do have flexible lot sizes and less restrictive dimensional standards. So the applicant is preserving as much of the open space area as possible, and has been a significant portion of steep slopes. Very small amount of disturbance to the steep slopes is proposed, but it's not substantial. In terms of it, in other words, it's not more than 30% of the total steep slopes, which would create a requirement for a more intense development review. But it didn't do that. It's a small amount of disturbances to the steep slopes. A couple other highlights: connectivity, as I mentioned before, to Faircrest and Hemmon Avenue, so that there is good connectivity to both the east and the west side of the lot, which I believe both go to separate arterials. So, and also, again, I mentioned access drives and private roads will serve lots north. Access drives and private roads will serve lots north of that public street, which again is the main kind of east-west public connection. So you can see the private roads here. You have a private road here. I think you have a access drive here, which is just a couple of lots. So that's because you don't have the connectivity requirement up there. So they do have access drives and private roads. So some zone change highlights. Again, it's zone change from future urban 10 acres to R-8.5, urban low density residential. This is a serviced area, meaning there's public sewer available, there's public water available, and as in this shown in the record, there was sufficient capacity for both those services, and both Clackamas Water Environmental Services and Sunrise Water Authority, the drinking water provider, provided preliminary statements of feasibility, and Clackamas Water Environmental Services provided some comments to recommended conditions. So the zone change, there's 7 pertinent policies that were addressed, and there it was pretty clear that R-8.5 is an appropriate zoning district. That's that's in the staff report, but R-8.5 is also the surrounding zone of the adjoining lots, and there's a similar development pattern there. So staff recommends approval R-8.5 zone. Okay, and just some infrastructure notes. Again, typical streets with sidewalks on both sides. So that's gonna provide a roadway connection from, again, west side of the property to the east. So that is a connection, and sidewalks will also be on the north-south public road proposal. There's a cul-de-sac at the north side of the road. Let me just show you again. But there is connection to the south property line, and then again sidewalks on the public roads, and there's also sidewalks on private roads, one side of the street. So there's a large stormwater pond, which we noted, and then it'll treat the impervious surfaces of the development, and they'll then be discharged into the stream that's there at the southeast corner that we discussed prior. And that'll be the only real disturbance of the habitat conservation area, which I can just show a quick summary on. I can provide a quick summary. So this is the essentially the open space, forested hillside, and associated habitat conservation area, water quality resource areas. So they're kind of over they are overlapping each other. There are some constraints. The applicant has preserved much of these uh, uh, constraints. There will be the requirement that's fairly typical to have a storm pipe brought down to the creek so that the impervious surface treated water could be discharged. There's a very small encroachment just for the outfall above the stream, which is fairly typical. The applicant accounted for that in their staff in their submitted application, and that can be reviewed Exhibit 1A. That's the HCA Habitat Conservation Area HCA development permit, and
Uh, do you have that available to, I have a quick question about that, the HCA staff report
yeah,
on,
I do.
if you look at page 14 of that, 14 of 15 on that report, it states the subject piping is greater than 10 feet. I thought that might be a typo.
I think
10,
that I'm sorry, page 14.
mm-hmm.
Let me take a look.
Kind of in the bottom
Oh,
under QB.
yes. I believe that the intended language would be the width of the trench is 25 feet. Maybe the applicant can say that. I think that's what was intended there. And let me just look at it real quick. And when that so that's 706.10 uh
Yes, A2A.
A2A. Okay. The disturbance area. Oh yeah, it should be no greater than, I believe.
That's what I thought. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get that confirmed because
Yes.
that seemed very strange.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Um, so you have the pipe being discharged to the stream and then the outfall. The water quality resource area and associated I'm sorry, the water quality resource area is regulated by Clackamas Water Environmental Services. That there was conditions of approval in the staff report that address this, and the applicant will address that with Wes at a later date. Um, and then of course the hillside there will retain a lot of the trees, and then there'll be on the next slide we'll look at the tree removal plan, but you do have sorry, let me get that going back again. You do have a large amount of trees being removed to accommodate the development, but again, the majority of the trees associated with the hillside are being preserved. So just quickly to address the comments and concerns noted by community and neighbors, most of the comments had concerns about traffic impacts. The applicant did address the scoping in more detail with their revised traffic impact study. And then that analysis, which was confirmed by county traffic engineer, didn't identify any critical capacity issues. The traffic would be dispersed through the transportation system, and again, no warrants for additional major infrastructure or anything like that. Also, there were some notes for neighborhood parks to be dedicated. Staff reviews the comprehensive plan policy and didn't find that to be required. Now, there is a trail delineated, it appears, on to be on the subject property to the south. The trail map, which is in comprehensive plan map 9-1, is not precise, but that was identified. The county cannot exact trail construction, so there's no requirement for that kind of thing, and again through the open space track D. But the applicant has noted they'd be willing to potentially grant an easement to a parks district, which was in the staff report too, but no requirement to develop a trail, which staff saw. And then there's general concerns with livability, water quality, tree removal, and so forth. So some of those criteria such as livability and so forth aren't a factor of consideration in the zoning code. Water quality is addressed through WES, and the applicant is preserving as much of the site as they can. They're not constructing development on the hillside, at least not in any major way. And then tree removal is a concern, but it's in the urban area. Tree removal is allowed pursuant to the county regulations, and much of the tree removal is on the flatter area, so that will accommodate very much needed housing. So finally, that is the recommendation. The recommendation is approval subject to conditions for files Z0012-25, Z0013-25, and Z0014-25. I guess I would add one other thing. There is a type 1 review with the steep slopes review. The steep slopes that are below 35% are being reviewed through a type 1. I've looked at that criteria, and they can be met, and that type 1 approval will be approved with this. So there was no consideration there was no issues with that, basically. So just side note that as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to provide an opportunity for the applicant to introduce additional testimony or evidence the applicant wants me to consider with respect to these three concurrent applications. Please state your name and what your role in this is.
Hey, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Hearings Officer and staff. We appreciate everybody being here today and your work in helping us get to this point. So that's greatly appreciated. My name is Wayne Hasten. I'm with Pioneer Design Group, representing the applicant. Apologies. Our address is, my name Wayne Hasten, Hayson. And I will put up a slide in a moment with some of this information, but our address is 9020 Southwest Washington Square Road, Suite 170, Portland, Oregon 97229. And Ben, if I can just share my screen here, if that's okay.
There we go.
Coming through okay for you?
And
yeah.
Are you going to submit your presentation as an exhibit?
Yeah, I can send that so that you have all of the contact details in writing and those things. So
Perfect. And I forgot to check, Mr. Blessing, will the county be also submitting a copy of its presentation as an exhibit?
It will.
Thank you. Mr. Hasten, please proceed.
Thank you. And this is also always the most difficult part of my day, is not presenting too much of the information that Ben has just presented to you and taking up too much of that time. So we'll try and be brief with most of this. We do for the most part concur with the findings and the conditions of approval in the staff report. We do have a couple of questions which we'll address at the end of this presentation. So as I mentioned, the details for the project team. With me today, we have the applicant slash owner for this application, Brandon Sauer. Yeah. And Matt Sprague from Pioneer Design Group. We also have Jeff Mihalko, PE, who has done the engineering on the project. Also on this Zoom call, we have the biologist representing environmental science and assessment, Jack Dalton, and from Lancaster Mobley, transportation engineer, Jennifer Danziger, who can respond to any questions you may have regarding the traffic impact statement. Chris and probably not. Yeah, I don't believe the landscape architect and geotechnical engineer are on the call today, but if you do have questions for them, obviously with a request for an open record period, we can get them to respond to any questions you may have.
Okay.
So I will, like I said, I'll forward that to Ben and also to Ms. Reinhardt after the conclusion of the hearing, so they have that information written down. So as you've seen, we have the preliminary plat. It is a request for a 44 lot planned unit development subdivision with habitat conservation area development and a zone change along with that slopes development application. I won't talk too much about the zone change other than we think that the change from future urban 10 to residential 8.5 is something that is anticipated through the comprehensive plan and the zoning and development code. We do think it's the appropriate designation for this site, and we do, as was mentioned, services are available to the site to support that urban development. So we do believe that the recommendation of approval there is appropriate. I think this, the preliminary plat and the slide that I'll show you next really show the intent from previous development to create a through street, which would connect Faircrest and Heman together and provide the type of connectivity that the county is looking for. Some of that is also signaled by the fact that there are sewer easements that run along that alignment, and that really dictates the alignment of that through street as well. Those easements being put in place in anticipation of developments such as this one, connecting and essentially predetermining what that alignment will be. You can also see we've got the 89,600 square feet of Track D open space. The dashed line there, the darker of the dashed lines is the habitat conservation area boundary. So you can see that that entire habitat conservation area is inside of Track D. And as we'll talk about later, there's just that small portion of the WQRA, the water quality resource area, that is being impacted by the stormwater facility, which obviously they need to be located at those low points. And so sometimes they do abut those resource areas unavoidably. So moving on to just putting it in context, the site location, I think you can see from this slide, again, the connectivity connecting those two neighborhoods. It is, I believe, important to create that connection. The neighborhood to the west currently has that one entrance and exit point, which I think supports also that this was an anticipated connection to provide that second access point or that second point of entry to that neighborhood, which is obviously important for emergency services responses, for example. It is the size of the lots, as you can see, are relatively consistent with the lots to the west and certainly the lots to the east. We do think that maintaining the single family residential development and housing type is important for consistency within the neighborhood. And so we have maintained a density and lot sizing through the development that is consistent with the district and consistent with that single family detached housing approach. So another slide that you've already seen today, the habitat conservation area. As being mentioned, the storm facility encroachment there in purple, and then there is a small portion of lot encroachment, 645 square feet at the northern end of the habitat conservation area. The only impacts inside that habitat conservation area are those the storm outfall encroachment and the temporary encroachment to install the piping for that storm sewer system. And obviously they are necessary components to achieve the stormwater management on the site. I will also mention just in passing that one of the slides that Ben showed earlier, the existing conditions slide, also included those slopes areas. And we've calculated those areas that are above 20 and below 35%, and then those areas that are above 35%. And they correlate pretty closely with those areas that are located within Track D and within that habitat conservation area. Just for your reference, I believe we've got less than 5,000 square feet of development that's occurring on slopes between 20 to 35%. That's not residential development. That is also associated with the water quality facility. But to put that in context, there's 79,000 square feet approximately of slopes over 20% on the site. So it really is a very small portion and significantly lower than the 30% that we're able to apply for. I think it's somewhere around 6%. I thought it was 6, maybe 7. So it is as minimal as we could accommodate in terms of an impact to that slopes area. And just looking at the planned unit development and the justification for the planned unit development, the Clackamas County Zoning and Development Code, section 1013.01B, requires that in urban low density residential districts, which includes the R8.5 district, a subdivision shall be developed as a planned unit development if the subject property is larger than 1 acre and at least 10% of the subject property is designated open space on comprehensive plan map 4-6 North Urban Area Land Use Plan map, amongst other maps that were also listed. The site is listed on that open space as open space on the comprehensive plan. So we comply with that section, and obviously at 10 acres, we do exceed that 1 acre threshold as well. So we are required to apply for the application as a planned unit development. A couple of key points for the planned unit development per Clackamas County Zoning and Development Code Table 315-2. In a planned unit development, there is no minimum lot size. We have a 5,000 square foot minimum proposed, and we have an average which is around 5,700 square feet for an average lot size. Note 5 has maximum lot coverage in a planned unit development of 65%, as opposed to 50% in the standard district, which is anticipating some of those smaller lot sizes. And then note 8, in a planned unit development, there are no minimum rear and side setbacks, except from rear and side lot lines on the perimeter of the final plat. And we are maintaining those required side and rear yard setbacks around the perimeter of the site. The other things that are pertinent or key points for the planned unit development is there must be a natural or unique feature, and to the maximum extent feasible, the plan and design of the planned unit development shall ensure that natural or unique features of the land and environment are preserved. Obviously, we've got the 90-odd thousand square feet of habitat conservation area and associated open space areas, which are being preserved in their entirety. So we believe we comply with that section, and then the open space section, a minimum of 20% of the gross site area should be platted as one or more open space tracts, and between tracts D and C, C being a small open space tract near the access to the stormwater facility. The number, I believe, is 20.59%. So we do exceed that 20% of the gross site area to be platted as one or more open space tracts. So just concluding on the planned unit development, we do believe that the application does a good job of trying to balance those needs for resource preservation with the needed housing goals of Clackamas County and the state and metro area. These planned unit developments are always kind of a jigsaw puzzle to try and achieve those required responsible levels of resource preservation, but also meeting the social goals of the community and the county as well. And so we do think that this provides a good balance in doing that.
Thank you, sir.
So that concludes my formal presentation. I do have, Mr. Sprague does have a couple of questions that he wanted to ask. His address is the same as mine, and is also listed on the contact details that I'll provide to you at the end of the hearing.
Yeah, hi, my name is Matt Sprague. I'm principal planner with Pioneer Design Group. I have a couple of questions of staff, I think primarily, and they're both related to West's conditions of approval. The first one is found in the conditions on page 15 under sanitary sewer conditions. Could you bring them very flat? Yeah. Item 7, where the condition of approval, basically the last sentence says a point of connection for upstream parcels shall be located between tax lots 1108 and 1107. And that would put that point of connection between lots 9 and 10. However, we have actually provided individual connections to each of those properties. One where he's pointing out right now adjacent to between lots 6 and 7, and then the other between lots 12 and 13. So we believe this provides better sanitary service availability to each of the properties individually. So I was looking that maybe we can modify this condition to add at the very end between tax lots 1108/1107 or as otherwise approved by Wes. We would like an opportunity to talk with Wes about our current plan, and maybe that's the best outcome overall versus putting it directly between 1108 and 1107. The second item I wanted to talk about is on page 18. It's under surface water. It is 1817B. Surface drainage entering a development from offsite areas shall be intercepted at the naturally occurring locations. Offsite surface drainage shall be conveyed through the site in a separate storm drainage system and will not be mixed with the stormwater collected and treated within the on-site storm management facilities, unless the on-site storm management facilities are designed to manage and treat the additional flows from the upstream drainage basins, assuming full development potential. My question is that it seems under both scenarios, we are being put in a position to install additional facilities that are not specifically required by this development. For example, if we run the stormwater through our existing pond and we detain and treat for potential future development of the upstream properties, that creates basically a de facto regional facility. And we were curious under either of those scenarios if we're providing those additional capacities for upstream undeveloped, but to their developed potential, are there credits available for that increased cost associated with developing facilities for adjacent properties? So those are the two items I wanted to bring up, and maybe Wes can respond to at some point or during the open record period.
Let's take just a moment here. The first one that you raised, and did the applicant have an opportunity to review all of the conditions of approval, and these are the two that are of concern?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so let's talk first about the sanitary sewer condition on page 15. Let's go 18 of 68 also. West. This both has to do with West, and I'm not sure we have a direct representative of West here. But let's talk about the first one that you raised, sanitary sewer condition 7. Mr. Blessing, the applicant is proposing to add a phrase on there, or as otherwise approved by Wes. What do you think about that?
So I think it does make sense to me. I think that that flexibility would allow us to allow the applicant to work with Wes after the fact on that. I guess my only recommendation would be that we might propose that to the staffer there at Wes during the open record period. But unless they want to unless they have something else, or they're not in favor of that, which they could provide in the open record period, I think that would suffice, in my opinion.
I do too. It just seems like um, do what Wes says or do what Wes says.
Exactly.
So that seems pretty easy.
Yep.
The second part is a little trickier, and I'm not sure I completely understand. I want to make sure I do. That your reading of the development policy requirement here by Wes in for surface water to state that and it does state surface water that drains to your property entering from offsite, meaning other properties, adjacent properties, that looks like it is requiring that your on-site uh, surface management facility be sized to treat additional storm water or surface water that is being pushed onto your side, your property by any of these adjacent properties. That's the issue, correct?
Yes, correct. In normal development, each individual development would create their own stormwater management
They're
facility.
required to, yes. Um, yeah, this, I think, I don't want to leap into the fray here casually. But I think that if we're going to have an open record period, perhaps we could spend some time on this and get a recommendation back that is agreeable to both the applicant and Wes. And who would like to manage that? Mr. Blessing, are you?
I would generally facilitate that between myself, the applicant, and the district. And my only question would be if is this something where the applicant will propose a condition, or is this just going to be a general kind of connect the applicant with the district type thing? But normally, yes, I would probably facilitate I would facilitate the applicant, by an email or something, and that would connect them with the West staff, and they would have to come up with an alternatives condition, something like that from Wes. So
Does the applicant have, you talked about credits, et cetera, you then, it implies that you have an idea of how this could be reworded, is that, or you have something to go and negotiate with?
Yeah, I mean, our primary concern is that when we are oversizing a facility that would otherwise have to be constructed as a part of another development, they no longer have to install that facility because we put that facility in place for them at a cost.
Sure,
So we're looking at, well, if we are sending their stormwater through our storm management facilities, is there the ability to get credits for doing those additional improvements? Not that we oppose doing it, but there is additional cost associated that's not going to be experienced by the adjacent development in the future.
yeah, I understand. I think that seems like a conversation to take offline from this hearing. And I understand you want it both ways. You don't want to have to pay for more than you do have to provide here, but you also don't want neighboring properties flooding your downstream, literally downstream customers. So,
Correct.
right. All right, so why don't you work with Mr. Blessing and the staff at West on both of those, since you already have to contact them about this one, and this one's not as easy as adding a phrase like we talked about the other one. Let's just include them both, and I'll look for something from Mr. Blessing on this, stating that this resolution was reached. And if you're unable to come to a resolution on or an agreement, I think you're going to need to make a pitch and argue why, your change is I should make the change or not. And I'll consider that as well. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's moving right along.
I did just want to conclude by reminding the panel that we have the applicant and owner, Mr. Sauer, here to answer any questions. We have the project engineer, Mr. Mahalko, the project biologist, Mr. Dalton, and the project transportation engineer, Ms. Danziger, here to answer any questions or available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Concludes our presentation, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Then at this time, I'd like to provide an opportunity for members of the general public to participate in this hearing, to provide testimony or evidence that members of the general public would like me to consider in making a decision on these applications. If you want to participate, use the raise hand feature as Mr. Blessing described for your particular device, and state your name and address for the record.
I have Monica followed by Diane Hale.
Is it one? Okay, Monica. What's your last name?
Good morning. My name is Monica Quintero de Flemenick.
Okay. Would you mind spelling that?
No problem.
I did receive your the exhibit from the comments that you submitted, but you're on the record here. And
Okay, it's Quintero's Quintero hyphen D as in David EVLAEMINCK.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Mr. Carl, I thank you very much
Mr.
for
Cox.
allowing us to talk. So you did receive my particular concerns, and because I didn't hear those things being addressed during the hearing, and so I guess I don't understand how that all works. So I just want to make sure that I was actually heard, not just a formality of a paper. Yes, we received it,
Of
but
course.
like what was done. Like, for example, one of my biggest concerns was I didn't even realize that the property got sold to a developer. The previous owner, Mr. Bob Wenzel, he told us at the Charjan Woods, all the neighbors, that he would never have that piece of property sold, that it would always be a habitat, it will always be the trees, it will always, that he had it in a trust, that it was always going to be protected. And so this is a big shock to me, and it's like really surprising. So I don't know what happened there in regards to that. So that's one of my biggest things, and I just want to make sure for the record, open, that is a big concern. I don't know what happened. So
I
the
did
other thing, go ahead.
receive both of the submissions you made in March 20th. You also had commented about not receiving notice of the hearing, I thought, but maybe you meant notice of the sale of the property.
Actually, all of it. I found out later. So it was just, yeah. So I don't know why it's interesting because the two properties that one of the things that they were discussing about something about sanitation and going up to the property, that's my property. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going up towards my property line? And not only that, but the other one is Miss Bonnie Warren's property, and she too did not get any notice.
Hmm.
And it was just kind of interesting that the two properties that has gets affected, we both did not get any notices. So it's she should be online, or at least she was trying to get online. So I'm hoping that she maybe be able to um uh raise her hand and be able to speak as well. um but yeah, we both did not get any notices, and don't understand why. And so that was one of our biggest concerns. The other thing too is the fact that that's 10 acres of land that, we also have another huge development that's happening just across the street on 142nd that just happens to be out of the pictures that you guys are seeing. So that so the traffic, whatever that you guys are talking about, um, all the main traffic is going to go to 142nd Avenue. No one is going to go. So if you look at that plat, I know that they were talking about how they're going to, put that public road and connect the east to the west and stuff. Well, the one on the right hand side that going east, that's that's a uh, um, a neighborhood that is really like a maze to get back in there. So for people to hurry and get to work or whatever, I really highly doubt that majority of that traffic is going to go that direction. It's going to all go to 142nd. It's not going to be divided 50-50. 142nd is a very small road, and we've already had accidents on that road. And now we're adding 44 on one side of the street, and I don't know how many on the other side of directly on the other side, on the west side of 142nd, like literally across, and that's all being developed right now as well. So that's a big, huge thing, the traffic alone, and the fact that we have had accidents there, and there is not any sidewalks on 142nd, especially going down towards Highway 212, 224, where there's a bus stop. So and just speaking of this particular property, 44 houses, single family houses. Well, if we think about it, most of them are usually what, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That's at least 3 people per house. That's the most minimum. 3 times 44, each of them having a car. That's a lot. The other thing too that I'm really concerned about is the animals. That's 10 acres of land. I
Yep.
know we've seen tons of owls and hawks and hurlings. I've seen tons of coyotes and stuff. So my concern too is, yeah, okay, they might have done a study, but did they really, like, did we really check to make sure, Oregon's such a big thing about protecting animals and protecting the species that are whatever you call it, going in extinct. They made a big deal about the spotted owl and things
Yeah,
like that.
right,
Well,
pieces.
I mean, I've seen owls. I'm not a owl specialist or anything, but I've seen lots of them. Is it a spotted owl? I don't know. So those are things that are really huge to take into consideration. And back to Mr. Bob Wenzel, that was one of his biggest things too, is the habitat, which, that little tiny corner of the southeast, that's not a lot. So what's going to happen to those animals? That's going to go into our residential area, not only to the Charjan Woods, but to the other sides where small kids and small animals and cats and stuff will probably be their prey for coyotes and such. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about when I was listening um, to this the presentation about directing a storm drain going into the creek and just kind of collecting all of that water and putting it towards the creek. Well, that's another concern too. Not that it's going to affect me personally, but that water has to go somewhere. And that creek, I've been to that property numerous times because Mr. Wenzel always invited us to come and hike. You know, he wanted it to be a trail and a habitat, and he always wanted us to just be hiking it. And there are numerous people that were doing that. So that creek is small compared to others, but where's that water going to go? It's going to flood down below. It's going to, you know, when we have our major storms, you know, all that water, 10 acres of land that used to soak it all up. Now, I mean, yes, I know eventually some of it will trickle into that creek, but if you have a storm thing that is going straight to the creek, well, that's an increased volume of water. So those are my main things. My other question really quick too is he was talking about the properties having a setback, a rear and side, you know, what would those be? Because they're so-called rear setbacks. That's going to go against my property.
And
And
those setbacks will be the standard setbacks for side and rear. There's no, what I heard in the development and I saw in the application and the staff report that along all the rear and side, a planned unit development is required. And this one's, the proposal is for standard setbacks. It's within the internal area of the planned unit development that those setbacks are adjusted, but not along the rear. So you'll have the same setback that you have to the property line,
which is
whatever it is. Perhaps Mr. Blessing knows off the top of his head, but I just look at I always look at the regulation and I don't wing it. I don't remember. I never do. I always
okay.
look it up.
Mr. Blessing, do you know what that is? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Is that appropriate to respond, Mr. Cox?
Sure.
Yes, the rear setback depends on where the front is. We don't know that specificity yet, but the rear setback is generally 20 feet. In a side yard, setback is generally 5 feet on the perimeter.
Okay.
Okay. So
5 feet's not
it's
very much,
likely,
so.
it's likely what you have as your setback from on your property is likely 20 feet. And the new development, if it's approved, that would go in, it would be a reflection of that from the other side.
Okay. I do feel that I might have to re-listen to everything because there's so many things, and the lingo is definitely not my forte. So I'll have to like re-listen. So if I understand correctly, we do have another week to be able to submit any of our testimony.
I'll
More,
discuss
more.
that again before I close. So if you hang in there and wait till the end of the public hearing, I'll state something about that, but it will be a minimum of 7 days. Yes.
Okay.
It may be long.
So is this just like the first set of hearings that is happening right now? Like this isn't necessarily approved yet. It's just the formalities of starting the hearing. Is that what, if I'm understanding?
Partially, I'm the decision maker, so this is the presentation, the evidence that is being submitted, the arguments and that are being made in opposition to it are all here. And
Okay.
I'll make a decision after the record closes in this hearing.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, Mr. Hawks. Thank you so very much
Thank
allowing
you.
me to speak. I
Thank you
appreciate
for your
it.
citizenship. It was nice to meet you. I'd like to provide the same opportunity for other members of the public. And please,
Perfect.
if you would like to simply support what it's Ms. Quintero Devlamink. I'm so sorry, but that's a difficult one for me.
That's okay.
Um,
Monica's fine. Monica's fine.
what Monica stated, then please do so and say that you support her comments about a particular thing. Like, for example, I would like to follow up, and I will, with the county about the issue of the notice. Everyone should be receiving their notices that are as required. So I want to make sure there are no, hiccups with that process. Do we have another member of the general public?
I have Diane Hale, followed by Bonnie Warren.
Ms. Hale, would you please state your name? I see it on the screen, but I'd like to hear from you and your address as well, please.
Yeah, actually, this is Daniel Hale. I'm Diane's
Okay.
husband. She had to step away from the meeting. But there's three specific items that I need to, of concern that I want to make sure that you're all aware of. But first, before I start, I wanted to back Monica up on her concerns.
Mhm.
We've been on our property, actually our property, just so you're aware of it, is 14841 Southeast Hemmon Avenue. We're the last property on the north side of at Hemmon Road that abuts against this new proposed development. And so there's a number of concerns that we have about what is being proposed. But
While I have you while I have you, and before I forget to raise,
about 20 years.
I did read the March 20th letter received. It was an email
Yes.
that you submitted, but it stated that there was a letter attached to it, and my exhibit does not have a copy of any letter attached to it, to that email. So if you would submit it during the open record period, I would want to review your letter and, and
Okay,
see.
so does that email have any description on our concerns? Have you been able to read any water concern, water drainage
I
concerns?
think go ahead and submit the attached letter so I can see the whole statement. That would be,
Oh, I'll have to do that after this meeting if that's
of
okay.
course, that's fine.
So that was specifically our number one concern that I was hoping that y'all could have read before this meeting today.
I obviously, I would have, but it
Sure,
just
sure. I
wasn't attached.
understand that. And I understand that. So yeah, I'll talk to my wife and see, I mean, I have a copy of it here, but, but anyways, so I just wanted to back up Monica's concerns. We've been here for, between 19 and 20 years. It'll be 20 years this summer. And
Let
I
me
had the
just ask
privilege of,
you, since your concern is the water and drainage, do you experience a drainage or water issue on your property that backs to this one?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been happening since the year that I moved into this property, so it's been going on for
And
20
it's water
years.
coming from the proposed development property?
Well, it's coming from all of the area around us, so the north of us and also the west of us, which is this
Okay.
property, yeah, the proposed property.
Okay.
So anyway, I wanted to, again, back Monica on her concerns. First off, because I've had the privilege of meeting Mr. Bob Wenzel a number of times. He would walk his property and we would chat through the fence. And knowing that at some point development could take place, even though he was adamant that it would never happen, I continued to ask him if I could buy an acre just to try to preserve our area behind my house. And of course, he was stuck to his guns and would not even want to converse about that, although I'd bring it up every time. At the end of our conversation, we always had good conversation. But his concern was to make that property. In fact, he even mentioned that he had talked to the county and asked them if he could just give that property to them if they would guarantee they would never develop it and keep it as a park, a natural area. And it was evidently refused, which is ironic in my opinion. But anyways, So back to my concerns. Number one is the water issue. We already have a failing underground water drainage problem in our property. And it's coming from the neighbors to the north of us and from the property to the west of us. I have spent minimum of $15,000 trying to capture that underground water and push it and direct it out into the drainage of our on the street drainage just below our property, just to the south. Um, and I have, unfortunately, it's failed when heavy rains come, it fails and it overflows. And it's been a continual problem every year with our house. Um, I've talked to the county a number of times about this. I've gone to the county, tried to get blueprints or whatever they might have on the property, how it was developed, why we're having this issue. I've had scopes done uh, in the current drainage system, the 5 foot deep drainage system that's on the property, and it's scoped up to just a gravel layer about 5 feet below the surface that then was piped in, then it was evidently drained into an open 6-inch drainage pipe that then allowed rocks and debris to get down into that pipe, and that causes a continual blockage, especially when the heavy rains come. It only takes
Well,
3 days for heavy rains for that to happen and overflow. And then it
that
flows
sounds,
for a number
that
of
does
days.
sound really expensive and difficult to deal with. The current proposal would include keeping their own stormwater on their own site and treating it, so that may provide some relief for you there. Having actually having this proposed area developed as consistent with the application, they would be retaining and dealing with their own stormwater. So that could provide you some additional assistance. But let's talk about this particular proposal, sir.
Well, that's what I am talking
Oh,
about.
okay.
Because this, any change to what's happening with the ground system, the underwater drainage system as it currently is, as it's naturally flowing and flowing obviously into my yard also, is a concern because it could exacerbate the amount of water that's already coming into my property. And that's a concern to me. My system is already failing when it's heavy rain. I can only imagine if now there's additional amount of water being pushed into my property from any changes from the west side of my property.
Okay.
So the other thing is I have a 15 to 20 foot natural conservation area on my property that evidently was there when I purchased it. I didn't notice it. Unfortunately, I might have backed out of the purchase. Um, but it does not allow me to make any changes to that ground area behind my house. That's literally my whole backyard.
Okay.
Okay, and so if there's this conservation requirement on the back of my house, and my property, I don't understand why we're allowing a property right next to that fence, that border, to then be developed. So I have concern there with that. Um, so that's my second concern. The third concern for me is the traffic. It will increase our traffic tremendously, number one, because we already have a dead end property. And this neighborhood down here at this dead end, there's 5 houses here that are part of this dead end area. And we have neighborhood children that play out in the yard constantly because there's only a few cars that come through from these houses that are in the neighborhood, and we're all cognizant of the neighbor children playing. Now, if we have all of a sudden a straight through main road that's coming from 142nd into our little, I'm calling it a cul-de-sac. It's not a real cul-de-sac, it's a dead end. Then there goes the number one, it's a risk to the children. Number two, it's going to cause additional traffic flow into our neighborhood that we don't currently have. And part of the reason why I bought this house was because it abutted against this dead end area of the neighborhood, knowing it'd be a low traffic area. Just basically who lives here and any visiting friends, family, whatever. So that's going to increase. So my question to the county and to the developer is, who's requiring that this road be opened up
Extended.
from the new neighborhood, from the new development? Where's the requirement coming from? And why haven't we been included in that discussion before the county has now supposedly approved this?
The county has not approved this. This is the hearing to consider it. Um,
But you're leaning toward considering it. So,
I haven't made any decision.
well, I'm not trying to go on the offensive here with the
Okay.
county. I'm
Let-
asking the question,
Let me pause.
what's the
this for a
requirement?
Yeah.
Where's the requirement that this road need to go through into our neighborhood? Who's requiring that? Or is it just a request from the developers? Or is it a requirement from the county? Or what exactly is driving that piece?
All right, one moment. Mr. Blessing, did you want to address this?
Certainly. So yes, connectivity is set forth in section 1007 of our zoning and development ordinance. There's no restriction to, let me rephrase that the applicant has proposed a connection, and that there could have been some alternative ways that they could have designed roads, but there's also a requirement for connectivity. Connectivity is essentially designed to make sure that there's flow through of traffic, and so this section 1007 does address that. The applicant has made I would say an obvious connection to two street stubs, and that section 1007 supports that. So that's where it's listed. Also the county roadway standards, but primarily from the zoning and development ordinance section 1007.
So, okay, I appreciate that information. I need to know kind of who to address my concerns to in the future on this, but
All right. And I
the,
do want to make sure that we provide time for other people to do this. Do you have another separate issue that's relevant here, sir?
well,
I
I'm
want to make
currently
sure I
on
hear
my-
you, but I want to make time for everyone.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a deadline of when this meeting ends. So, again, with my third concern is regarding the livability of our current neighborhood and the marketability for where I'm at and this specific home that I'm in this dead end is going to decrease, in my opinion, because number one, I bought this place on purpose because it was at the end of the road and there was a dead end and there wouldn't be high traffic. That's why I bought this house. So in my opinion, the marketability and the value of the home setting that I have is going to decrease. So who would be compensating myself and the other neighbors in this little five resident home?
That's not irrelevant to the approval criteria.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not irrelevant to you,
I'm
but
sure
it
it's
is relevant
relevant
to
to
us.
you, sir.
It's
but
relevant to
it's-
me.
Yes.
I can't speak for the other neighbors, but I can speak for myself. It's relevant to me that we
All right.
are going to lose our home, some of our value of our livability for our children and also for our neighborhood children and also the marketability of our neighborhood because now it's on a main road instead of a small neighborhood at dead end. So that's my concerns. I know that you aren't in the position to resolve my concerns at this point, but I needed to make sure that you're aware of those concerns and that you address them at some point. hopefully before you make this decision. But back to the water issue, that's my biggest number one. And if there is a way that that you, the county, and the developer can work with me to try to help resolve what I'm already dealing with, and guarantee to me that this development is not going to increase the water that's coming into my property underground. I'm not talking about surface water. I'm not talking about storm water. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about flooding water. You guys have already, the developers already talked about this. You've discussed this regarding the West work with other neighbor houses, water coming into your new development. Let's address what we currently already have going on. That's happening currently in my property. So I would love to see the county and the development reach out to me and want to help us come to some resolution as to how this will help the drainage and the underwater drainage that I'm dealing with already.
And don't forget to send that letter. Maybe the county has it and can, Mr. Blessing, yes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
well, I'll
If
do
I-
that. I'll do that, but that's just
I
my
can speak to
request.
that,
Just a
Mr.
moment,
Hale.
Mr. Hale.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hale. I can speak to that. So I did look at the email. Looks like a ribbon on the email may have blocked the document. I have received the document. I've already entered it into the record. Let me just confirm. It is dated.
Yeah, just last month.
I have that it was
Dated.
received March 20th.
Yeah, the letter is dated 3/20/2025. I've created it as exhibit 36 of the record, and
Okay,
that'll be
thank
made
you.
available as soon as we can.
Okay,
Okay.
that would be super. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to share, but I do appreciate that you guys do have this open forum for us, for the neighbors to speak into our concerns regarding this.
And the situation with the water sounds awful, and I understand why you'd be concerned about anything that would make it any worse.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
sure.
Carl.
Thank you for your citizenship and participation in the hearing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And just by the way, I purchased in a development, so I'm not against development. I just need some help here on my property. So
Thank you, sir. Ms. Reinhardt, do we have another hand up?
I have Bonnie Warren.
Okay,
Hi. Hi, thank you for letting me speak today. Can you hear me?
yes. And will you
Okay,
please
great.
state your name and address?
Yes, it's Bonnie Warren and my address is 14670 Southeast Charjan Street. My property is directly adjacent to the proposed property to the north. And I have about 283 linear feet that run along the north side of the property. From the map, I see that there will be 4 homes overlooking my property, 4 homes 20 feet away from my property. And I'm not really thrilled about that. I'm the last house on a dead end street, and like the other neighbors said, they bought it for the quiet, peace and quiet. And that's why we are here, for the peace and quiet. But having 4 two-story homes overlooking our property is nothing that I would like. And I just talked to a realtor and he said it will definitely devalue my property. So, and I wanted to talk a little bit also about the drainage that was brought up today. And it's not anything that we thought about, but there is water that drains into our property and floods our garage, and it comes from further north. Even though we are directly north of the proposed property, we still get water draining from north of us. So we've had our garage flood several times. And what else did I want to say? Oh, I wanted to talk about Bob Wenzel. Bob Wenzel did not want that property developed ever. He wanted it as conservation property. And I am so sad, from what I understand, that his relatives that inherited the property could not afford to pay the taxes. And that's the only reason they sold the property, is to pay the taxes on it, because they had a large inheritance tax that they had to take care of. And it's unfortunate that that was the way it had to go, because Bob never planned to have anything developed there. He always wanted it as conservation for nature. And he, as an old man, spent time after time, even with his dementia, would go over there and work on that property and maintain it. And he did his best up until the time he passed away. And to see it be developed is just heartsick. And that's all I have to say, other than I agree with what the other neighbors have talked about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. And I did receive the submission that you made, and I read that as well. And my condolences for your loss, and who sounds like a great neighbor, Mr. Wenzel. Ms. Renhard, do we have?
I have Matt. I'm sorry. Was that Rosemary Reynolds who just finished?
That was Bonnie Warren.
Okay, so I have Rosemary Reynolds followed by Matt Matson.
Okay, Rosemary Reynolds.
Good morning. My name is Rosemary Reynolds Gluch. I live at 14923 Southeast Glenbrook Road. I have just 3 basic concerns, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but has an engineer actually stood out on Wenzel Drive, starting like at 6:30 in the morning through the time kids go to school? And again,
You mean a traffic engineer?
yeah, I would say. And then again after school to kind of take a look at what's going on there.
I noted it to somewhat answer your question. There were traffic studies that were made that showed people actually did traffic counts at the relevant intersections. That is an update that was made to the original traffic information, traffic impact statement. The additional ones were shoot. I may have a date for you.
Be March 26th.
March 20, I see it now. Applicant Lancaster Mobley, revised traffic impact statement, March 26. That included traffic counts and data, meaning if it wasn't an engineer specifically, it was someone under the direction of an engineer.
If it was March 26th, that was during spring break.
Oh.
So would there have been anything done prior to that? Because here's what happens on a normal day. My house faces Aspen Way, it leads into it. So Wenzel Drive comes up behind my house. I have a green space and a neighbor behind me. I hear all the traffic, the kickback from 142nd. And I can, a few weeks ago, I was on my way to a doctor appointment at 7:30 in the morning. I got to the corner of Wenzel Drive and was going to make the left-hand turn onto 142nd. With new development across the street, there was a car in front of me, also trying to turn left, but there was a car coming from the new development, going to pull out at the same time. Both cars pulled out and had to pull back fast. They would have hit each other. There's nothing really safe about that intersection now. My worry is for children who wait at the bus stop there, right on the corner. We have people parking on both sides of the street. That's not good. We have construction workers parking to the right, going toward 20 side in a blind spot. And we have a guardrail to the left that if you're in a sedan or a small car, you can't see over it. And people trucking up the hill are really hitting the gas pedal. I would say an engineer needs to sit out there for an hour in the morning, not during any kind of break from school or days off from school, but make sure school's in session and really look at what's happening, because I think there's kind of a recipe for a catastrophe there. And maybe you're just not seeing it. I know that you're trying to do the best that you can with this, but I think already we don't have enough in and out of this development now, and you're only proposing a couple more roads, but people are going to look for the shortcut. So they're going to come right through Aspen, Faircrest, Glenbrook, and all head out here. I mean, we could really have a traffic jam. I really want you to see the traffic jam that we as neighbors see in the morning and after school, and when people are coming home from work at 4 o'clock. If that isn't done, I don't think we're going to get a good picture of the true traffic impact for everybody. I also want to know, did you all talk to emergency disaster management with Clackamas County, Clackamas Fire, and Clackamas Sheriffs? Did you have them come out to this area and look at it? Because right now, if we had a wildfire, you would have a hell of a mess trying to get all of us out of here, because people are going to want to get in their cars. And some of our residents are much older, and not super mobile. I'm just asking you to look at some of these things, Mr. Cox and Mr. Blessing, before you move forward with the plan. I'm not trying to stop development. I know we need it, but I really do want people here to be safe, and in the new development as well, and over on Sharjan. I think what I've heard today has been really valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw that Ms. Danziger joined by video for a moment, and she is the author of the, or at least provided the professional engineer stamp and co-authored the traffic impact study and the revised traffic impact study. Did you have a comment, Ms. Danziger?
Yes, I was going to add that the study is dated the 26th, which was during spring break, but the counts were collected the week before spring break. So school was in fact in session when the counts were collected. The prior study also went and looked at, as a concern that was raised with discussion with the county, we did look at the sight distance at that intersection. So there is adequate sight distance. When I say adequate sight distance, it meets standards. It meets the standards for the county. And there is a very limited crash history in the time period that we looked at. There were 2 reported crashes. One was related to turning movement. One was someone on 142nd driving too quickly who lost control. And the other thing I'd note is our traffic forecasts did include the study across the street. So while that wasn't included, actually there was a small amount of volume that was included under the existing counts, but our forecasts do account for and incorporate the study that was prepared for the development on the west side of 142nd.
Okay, thank you for addressing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question would be, when they did the traffic count, are they just counting cars, or are they really looking at individuals, people walking, where cars are parked, driving habits? You only mentioned a little bit of speeding. There's a lot of speeding on 142nd. I think, there's just different factors. And that guardrail, I'm a 5'5" woman in a small SUV. And when I look, that guardrail needs to be about back at least 2 feet, so I can see what's coming up the hill. Because when I edge out, I don't want to edge out too far because they're coming too fast up the hill. I don't want to get hit. And then if a vehicle's blocking that area right next to the Wenzel Park Estates sign coming in, you can't see what's coming from Sunnyside through 142nd. 142nd's a cut through from Sunnyside to 212 enter from 212 to Sunnyside, we get all the traffic.
My review of the report in advance of this hearing showed that there were areas for taking counts of pedestrians, and it had a number of different categories. Ms. Danziger, did you want to speak to that though?
So it does include pedestrians in the counts, and there were in fact a couple of pedestrians that were crossing Wenzel Drive. No one was crossing 142nd. We don't look down the road. We don't count parked vehicles or those kind of things. It is looking at the operations at the intersection itself. And so we do have some of that, but we don't have everything. I would just note all of our counts and our analysis follow the standards for the county. And we did respond to comments from Happy Valley that requested this additional traffic information. And so that's why it came later in the study, was the concern that there was traffic out here. And I would also note that while there is delay for this intersection, there is capacity to make these turns. It might be that people will have to wait a little bit longer. And, four-way intersection is a standard thing. People will learn to look in the other direction very quickly as that becomes active, and they get used to the fact that it is a development there. So.
Thank you. And Ms. Reynolds, thank you for participating, and thank you for your citizenship. I hope we address those questions, but I know that there will be additional concerns here. Do we have another member of the public that
I have
wants to
Matt.
participate?
I have Matt Matson, followed by Jim Schroeder.
Hey, I'm still in my meeting and I'm going to be in for a long time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, this is Matthew Matson, Mattson. I'm on 14501 Southeast Charjan Street. And my concern is, along with all the other neighbors, is the traffic. We've already got this new development on 142nd, 40 plus homes that is still not completed. I'm not understanding why we need this new track when the other ones are not even completed yet, and there's potential for houses and, there. But the amount of traffic going down 142nd is already bad. If you've ever sat in the morning or the evening during rush hour at the intersection of 142nd and 212, 224, that line gets backed up the hill. And you add another 100 plus whatever vehicles for all these developments, that is just going to get so bad and you'll be sitting there forever. It's, they keep putting in all these developments, but don't account for improvements with roads, the already overcrowded schools. Are these developers having to help pay for all this, pay for the roads, pay for the schools, pay for the impact of this area? I mean, to me, it's just ruining the livability for everybody in this area with all these cramming every house on top of every square inch of property we can. It's just ruining the livability for everybody that's already here.
I did read the note that you sent, sir, March 19th, and I understand your concerns and will definitely consider all of the concerns of the citizens that are participating. Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cox. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cox. It's a pleasure being able to speak on this call today, this hearing, and I appreciate the hard work that you're doing today and Mr. Ben Blessing and his staff has done all along. He's been very patient, especially with myself and with the myriad of questions I've had. So Mr. Blessing and your staff, I appreciate your attempt to work with me so we can get to this point. Thank you very much. My wife, I'm exhibit 3. My wife and I are exhibit 3 from the.
Yes, I see that. March 10th.
I appreciate you looking at that, and especially Ben, I appreciate you addressing or looking at a couple of the issues we had in there. That was more of my technical response. This will be my emotional response. So I'm going to try to rein it in a little bit, but we live a couple 100 feet from the development. We are right down on Faircrest on the corner of Mayfield and Faircrest. We live in Wenzel Park Estates Phase 2. So let me just state up front, we are not against development. My wife and I have lived and raised our 3 children, and now we're raising our 2 grandchildren 4 days a week in Happy Valley for the last 40 years. We've lived in 3 developments that have been developed in probably space like this at some point. And so we get it. We've benefited by doing that. Our problem is we believe.
And you want the same for your daughters. I understand, your family.
We're regressing. You know, our first subdivision had a 5-acre private park in the middle of 3 cul-de-sacs. The second one had walking trails along creeks, heading to parks. What do we have now? So my comments, I heard the comment from, I'm trying to find the name of the design group that spoke earlier. Pioneer Design Group. They said, they mentioned the statement, social goals of the community. I hear that, and I heard everybody talking today about the social goals. I also understand completely the housing development goals of the county. To me, it's a balance between these two.
Well, I think you also heard Mr. Hasten talk about support for the potential for an easement to the Parks Division about for a trail through that area. So
I think that's awesome. That's an awesome plan. What we really need is, and I'm all about the children. It's not about, I'm 67, you know, I mean, I'm about the children, the next generation, the kids, right? We need a park. We need an area. The kids all play in the street, Mr. Cox. The homes they're small. There's no backyards. The driveways are full of cars. The kids play in the streets. I know that's not ideal, but that's what we have, right? And so, and there's no park here, you know, and once we get it developed, like, and I go at Wenzel Park 1 and 2 got developed with no park, with little area for the kids to play in and recreate. Once this gets developed, same issue, no park. Okay. I love the idea of connectivity, not necessarily for cars, but for pedestrians and bicyclists and kids to get through to the parks to the east, because there are parks to the east. And it is a death trap taking our kids to the west, and we won't until 142nd gets completely rebuilt. My plea, and I love the idea of the common area, this open space. I love the idea of an easement for a trail. Brandon, thank you. I just wish we could see forward a little bit and say, can we plan an area for a neighborhood park, small area? I mean, we just need someplace for the kids to get and recreate and get off the street. During the day, there are parents standing out watching for cars and yelling to our kids, get off the street because cars are coming through. That's today. In 3 years, Faircrest will be a freeway past our house. Now, we lived on a corner lot. I'm okay with it. We get that, right? But can we do better with this development? I recognize that the statutes and the criteria are explicitly being met, and that it may be like my request for a park, Ben, I read your response, and I get it. There's no, you know, they don't have to. I get the have to, but can we find a way to do something? And it's not about me. It's about the children. It's about it's about the grandchildren that are watching right now. It's all about them and our future generations. Because that's, to me, what development does, is we're developing for the future, not necessarily for today. So I'm sorry, Mr. Cox, I got passionate. I'm sorry.
No, that's part of being a citizen and involved and caring about your community, and and it takes advocacy or there won't be parks. You're right.
And thank you, sir. We absolutely care and love Happy Valley. We've been here 40-something years. We're going to stay here another 20 plus years, God willing. I can stay on the earth. We want to make it better. I mean, I want to ride my bike with my grandchildren behind me. I don't have any place to ride it to. I can't take them to a park. I can't take them anywhere. And I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you, they're not playing in my front yard or my side yard when the development goes in. I'm terrified of a 2-year-old sprinting off. I'm sure you're well aware of what that looks like. So I'm asking us, I get development, we've been part of it, and can we do better? And I'm willing to be part of a team, a task force, a committee to find a way to do better, to get a handle on traffic and a handle on recreational area for our children.
I'd encourage you to be involved as a citizen. There are opportunities to do so. And thank you for participating in this hearing. But there are larger things as well, from the shoot. It had it on the tip of my tongue, but there is let's see, just a moment, sir. There's the Citizens Planning Organization for your area is called Rock Creek, and it's inactive right now, but it takes citizens that care about it to reactivate a citizen planning organization for the area.
Can I
Yes,
say,
Okay.
blessing.
yeah,
Thank you.
on that note, I can provide you with our public and governmental affairs department. They're pretty helpful if you're trying to reestablish. So I can provide that too after the hearing if that helps.
Thank you, Ben. Just one more note, Mr. Cox, if I do have another 2 minutes. And I'll back it down. I appreciate, especially Ben, you reaching out and having an additional traffic study done. And we've all mentioned traffic, and I'm not going to bring it up again. What I hope could be looked at is a little more of a broader view of the traffic. And more, we're looking at almost like through a very closed lens, a very narrow lens. We're looking at, like the traffic engineer said, specifically the intersection at 142nd and Wenzel.
Standards, right? The site standards.
Yes.
Yes.
There were 23 crashes on 142nd, 100 feet south of the intersection of Wenzel this last February during the ice storm. So I don't appreciate this very narrow lens to meet a standard. That road down 142nd is a nightmare. And Rosemary is exactly correct. Ben, if you park your car at 142nd at the designed white line where it stops you from the stop sign, you can't see 4 feet. You have to pull your car completely out past the guardrail to see anything. And then Rosemary's right, you're in the lane. And it's 30 miles an hour down the hill, not 40. And people are doing 40 coming from the north, screaming down that hill. So I just wish the traffic study would take a broader look and not such a narrow view. The other item that I wish the traffic engineer would look at is this connectivity issue. I recognize the county's need for connectivity, but the traffic, when I read the study, very difficult to read last night, when I read the study, it didn't appear to address connectivity between neighborhoods, the increased traffic of just pure neighborhood flow, because now there's an open road to move on. All right. Before you fought your way east from the east neighborhoods. Now there's this very quick access to the west, the 142nd. You're going to take it. My son-in-law told me Google Maps will route people through the most efficient way.
That's
Google
correct.
Maps will take people from the west into our neighborhood. So I wish.
You're correct. There will be additional traffic once that through street is open. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then I wish we could relook at that connectivity issue. Is it really, really required? I understand it's a want and a need. Can connectivity be allowed for fire life safety and allowed from the east and allowed pedestrian, bicycle, children traffic out? Because we fear, and you know, Mr. Cox, what's going to happen. All that traffic is just going to plow right through our neighborhood and nothing will be done. And we're going to be left with filing complaints with people, which I don't want to do. I'd rather enjoy my grandchildren.
Over the speeding and I did
Exactly.
you commented, I think you made a couple of comments proposing that it be an a gated emergency access only and perhaps speed bumps, but I will review again your letter after this, and if you submit anything additional during the open record period, I'll consider that as well, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm done. I couldn't thank you all more for the opportunity for this public. It's my first hearing going through this process, and I really, really, really do appreciate it. It's been an eye-opening experience and actually an enlightening one for me. And I hope we can find a equitable solution for all of us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your participation and for considering the citizens planning organization that is inactive right now. Ms. Reinhardt, do you have any additional public participants?
I have Andrew Swanson.
Okay.
Hello, yeah, this is Andrew Swanson. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great. So I live on Stanhope Road. The address is 14950 Southeast Stanhope Road, and it's in the Addington Place HOA. I live in phase 3, and I did already submit email comments to Ben a few weeks ago. Ben quickly confirmed he received them, so so I don't want to revisit those because it's already on the record, right? But I just wanted to say a couple things. When Dan Hale, my neighbor, spoke, yeah, he reminded me that Addington Place Phase 2, which is where he lives, does have conservation easements, lots of buildable lots with homes now. They're all built. Lots of them do have conservation easements in the backyard. And in many cases, they're not being complied with, by the way, but that's not my point of this. But just to say that, yeah, I did always assume that because there's a conservation easement in Dan Hale's backyard, and he's adjacent to, for example, lot 14 in this proposed development. So yeah, it is, if lot 14 doesn't have a conservation easement in its backyard, yeah, it would be good for us all to hear an explanation for why not. I think the reason is the policy changed. The county's policy just changed. I think, and that's valid, that's fair. But yeah, I met Mr. Wenzel too. He died in May 2024. He told me he wanted to sell the land to the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District, and he tried real hard, but they wouldn't buy it.
Mm.
And sorry about that. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes.
And so I was never under any illusions about the protected status of the property, because he told me he tried to sell it to the county and he was going to give a real fair price. And again, the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District didn't have the money really and didn't want to buy it. So and I know he passed away, so I get it. But just to pivot, and I did include this in my comments, so I'll just say it again. Because there was the divorce between Happy Valley's Parks Department and the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District a few years ago, NCPRD, they're on the way out. They're not making any let's be honest, they're not making any investments in the area. They're withdrawing. It's a strategic withdrawal, and Happy Valley's taken over. And the problem is it's real slow and incremental, but it does, if Happy Valley's Parks Department isn't in the conversation, they really need to be, because they're going to be the long-term Parks Department provider for Addington Place and Wenzel and the Isley neighborhood on the other side. And that someday it's all going to be Happy Valley. We just got to be honest with ourselves, and it's just real slow. And so this is a one-time historic opportunity to get a public park, and that area over there has no public park. And I did include that in my comments, but there's no public park around there at all. And there is one called Pioneer Park. It's way over on 152nd, and maybe it's barely reachable. from this development, but I really do think that it's just, I know it's a burden. It's a bureaucratic burden to have to coordinate with all these separate layers of government, but NCPRD, they would not want to take on additional park acreage, but Happy Valley hopefully would, because they're thinking long term and they're going to be the permanent parks provider. The other thing I wanted to say, there's two more things. One thing is for Dan Hale's drainage problem. Yeah, it's coming from lot 14. It's a piped creek. And when it rains, there's more water. And so, yeah, I do hope that the developers, when they're constructing on lot 14, if they could try and find that water that's going on to Dan Hale's property, if they could find that water, catch it and run it straight south away from his land, that would be just really wonderful. And I know Dan, I think more or less said that, but I just echo what Dan says, that he's been burdened with that offsite drainage forever, decades. And if it's coming from the Wenzel Tree Farm, and so if he, and some of the water might be coming from the Charjan Woods neighborhood too, by the way, passing through the Wenzel Tree Farm. But if that, when the Wenzel Tree Farm is urbanized, if the developers and the builders, if they could try to find that water and catch it, and again deflect it and direct it south away from Dan's property, that I'm sure he'd love that. And the final point I'll make, and thank you for the chance to speak, I really appreciate it. And Ben, especially, you've been so helpful and patient, and I just really appreciate your professionalism and your assistance. But my final point is just about connecting Hemmon Avenue, which is a dead end right now, connecting Hemmon Avenue to 142nd through roads like Faircrest. I get how there's probably going to have to be a connection. I've always assumed there were. I know about the laws and the rules about connectivity, but so I've always, as you know, Ben, when you read my comments, I've focused on trying to slow down the traffic. Traffic calming is a word I've used. I think that, I don't know if that's a technical term, but yeah, I know it. I can see your face, Carl. You know what I'm talking about. That's where and maybe put up a sign saying like no trucks, like local traffic only, you know, and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying we need speed bumps, but if there is an intersection, if it's narrower in the intersection,
and it will be.
they call it a killing zone for pedestrians. If it's a narrower space, then the person has to spend less time in the crossing, and there's less chance of a collision. So there's just little stuff like that. It forces traffic to slow down if the road narrows at the intersections, and there's all kinds of traffic calming tricks and tools. And I just encourage you guys, you, Ben, and traffic engineers to use that to try to find the best way to slow the traffic down and maybe discourage people from taking this route. Because I get that it's going to be probably a through street. And so to me, slowing down the traffic is maybe the smart compromise. So I encourage you guys to keep exploring that. And sorry, Carl, I cut you off. I'm done. What were you going to say?
Fine. Thank you for addressing again the concern of your friend and neighbor about the drainage. If this is approved, I would be hopeful that at least containing the water and surface stormwater on this particular property, the former Wenzel property, would give him some relief there as well. But if there's also a pipe, then I don't know.
I don't think anybody knows, but here's the key. I don't think Stone Creek Development knew until today, because I don't think the water's on the surface of the Wenzel Tree Farm. So they probably had no idea, you know. So that's why I'm so glad Dan tuned in and brought it up, because that's one of the benefits of this is we're having a conversation, right? The neighbors and the county and the developer and their partners, and we're just talking about it. And this is just something that they probably hadn't. I'd be surprised if they even knew. But yeah, the water's totally coming from the Wenzel Tree Farm, but it's underground a little ways. So that's anyways, thank you so much for the chance to speak, and I'm going to stop talking and let you get on with the hearing. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, sir, and thank you for your participation.
Next, I have Alicia.
Would you please state your name and address? And you're on mute, Alicia. There it is. Try speaking. I still don't hear you. Let's give her a few more seconds because not everyone's that familiar with how to turn on their volume and their microphone. Well, I don't see your last name, Alicia, and I only have last names that I put on my list here. So I don't know if you've already written in, but there will be a time when this record will be open for you to submit a written statement to Mr. Blessing. He provided his contact information. That's available also on the county's website, and you can send that to him, and he'll include it as an exhibit for me to review. And if you've worked out your technical difficulties, raise your hand again. Okay. Do we have someone else, Ms. Reinhardt?
Yes, next I have Jim Harris and then Gary Acker.
Okay.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I will be so brief. I just have a couple of additions to say that that other people have mentioned, but not quite.
Can I get you to state your name and address,
A
sir?
proposal I think that would work for everybody if we could just take note of this one thing. If we could just put a sign, an official sign that said no through traffic on the east side of that development, I think a lot of the concerns would be addressed. We won't have a parking lot through the current Wenzel development. We won't have a lot of people coming from the east side through to the nicer access to 142nd. We would still have fire access. We would still have access for residents. If we could just limit through traffic, I think that would sort out a lot of headache and things that people have addressed. I would like to support and endorse a lot of the things that were said about Bob Wenzel and the current concerns of the existing neighbors. But that no through traffic sign is the hill that I would die on. And I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. And can I get you to state your name and address so that we make sure we have it? No, that was Mr. Jim Harris. I don't know his address, but I think he did submit. Someone made the exact same comment about a no through traffic sign, but I don't see his name listed on any of these. Okay. Thank you, sir. Gary Acker.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I'll be brief.
Please state your name and address.
Yeah, Gary Acker, 15049 Southeast Glenbrook Road in Wenzel Park.
Thank you.
So if you take a quick bird's eye view of Wenzel, coming into the development, there's a mini S curve, and there's always a large pickup on the left of one of the three houses. On the right, there's a home, and they have a couple of cargo vans for their business. And every time I come in, and everyone, you have to stop when there's another car coming, and you have to kind of wait and see who's going to go and who's not. And to complicate that in the morning, not only are there kids at the entrance, but you've got the younger kids. The school bus comes into the development, which further backs up us as we wait for the bus. So the additional homes in the new development is obviously going to tremendously impact the Frogger waiting and who's going to go and who's not. But there's going to be twice as much traffic coming from the east development as the new development, because if you look on that bird's eye, it's just simply so much easier to get down to 224.
That's true. I saw that.
So we're not really looking at just the new development. We're looking at 3 times the new development traffic. And that S curve there is going to be a disaster. I mean, not just in the morning or in the evening, but all day. Just that's just what I wanted to just point out.
I'll consider your statements and comments as well, sir. And thank you for your participation.
We have a couple hands up from people who have already testified.
Do we have anyone that's new?
No.
Okay, I'd like to encourage anyone that had additional things to submit a written statement to Mr. Blessing. I do want to provide an opportunity for the county or applicant to address any of the comments that were made to this hearing, and then we will talk about an open record period. Did the county have anything first that the county would like to comment on?
I do, and I'll be as quick as I can on addressing the relevant comments here in the with the general public testimony. So starting at the beginning, Ms. Quintero de Flemic, there was that important note about the notice, and I believe we've talked about that before, and I believe our permit specialist also did a little digging, and the process the county has for notification is, especially on a large scale mailing like this, which goes out to a half mile, folks within a half mile. We use the county assessor's database, which has addresses provided in the database. So there are times when property owners list other taxpayers and things like that as the recipient to receive mail. And I believe that is the case here. We have made a note to specifically notify Ms. Quintero de Flemic, so all subsequent notices will include, and then they would anyways with this because they provide the address, but they will include her email address, so there will be a notice, and then of course the testimony was heard here today. So
thank you for addressing, and I understand what you're saying. The tax assessor's office, that database includes addresses for the person that should receive notice as the property owner, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what happened. That the notice could go to a different address. Somebody may maintain a different address or something, or a different person receives and pays the property tax bill or what have you.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So also, let's see here. I think the other issues were addressed, or not, so are not addressed to the ZDO. So I'll move on to Mr. Hale's comments. So I was just gonna kind of reiterate what was said before, but surface water will be addressed by Wes, and it was discussed kind of quite a bit and through various people who have a lot of knowledge. So Water Environmental Services has a surface water management agency, and they will have full requirements to the district standards, and they have a breadth of knowledge, and they'll be addressing those standards. So I just want to reiterate that Water Environmental Services, Clackamas Water Environmental Services, or WES, is the surface water management agency. I noted already that we entered Mr. Hale's comments exhibit 36. Oh, and then I did want to mention, just for the record, the Platte conservation easement. I think it was mentioned by Mr. Swanson as well, but the Platte conservation easement, I guess at the rear of Mr. Hale's property. I did look at the plat. There's a note that corresponds with it, note 6. I can put that in the record if you think it necessary, but note 6 says the conservation easement does allow maintenance for storm drainage facilities. So he mentioned that there might be some difficulty getting back there, and because of the easement, but it does look like there's a provision for that kind of work in the easement. And then I also just on the topic, yes, there could have been changes, as I think Mr. Swanson mentioned. I think the prior developments were over 30 years ago, and there have been changes to the ZDO since then. Let me move on to Ms. Warren. Yeah, I just to say generally, this came up in several comments. Yeah, that we can't address the prior owner's wishes. And we don't valuation isn't a approval criteria in the ZBO property valuation. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, and then moving down to Mr. Schroeder's comments. I mentioned PG&A. I'll provide that information. Let me just make a note. PG&A, Public and Governmental Affairs. They can be reached, and I mentioned that, but just note that I'll send that information to you. And then and this also kind of goes with Mr. Swanson's comments. North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District was notified. They mentioned they weren't attending the hearing, but we're expecting comments from them during the open record periods. They intended to comment, so there might be a little more information from NCPRD. I don't know if they will or not. Obviously, we'll have to see, but they did mention an intent to comment at the open record period. Going to Mr. Swanson, I think I already addressed that conservation easement. Oh, and I think that a lot of the folks here are probably aware of this, but I just did want to mention that a lot of times when there's traffic concerns, we have a program at the county called Drive to Zero. That can just be accessed online, Clackamas County Drive to Zero, and there's kind of a way that you can talk with our roads engineering department, and there are sometimes remedies available and so forth. It's just a resource. It's just something to consider. So I'd like to point that out. And
Perhaps influence someone to come and take a look at the guardrail and what that's really doing.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And that is the extent of my comments or my responses to the general comments.
Thank you, sir. And did the applicant have anything specific as a comment or a response? You're not required to.
And really beyond, sorry, Wayne Hasten for the applicant again, beyond thanking everybody for their participation today and your time, I think we'll reserve our responses for the open record period so that we can provide comprehensive written responses for you to review and take into account. So again, just thanking everybody for their attendance today, and yeah, if we can discuss the open record period and what that will entail and dates and all those things, that would be great.
Perfect. Let's do that. And you do have some homework to do with those two conditions of approval to follow up on at a minimum. Let's talk about timeline. Let's see, the current 120-day is June 4th. I have June 4th is the deadline for final action by the county on this these applications. There's all three of them. There is a request for an open record for a minimum of a week. So if we have a 1 week, then let me make a statement about that, because there's actually a requirement for discussing open record periods. It is, does any party or member of the audience want an opportunity to provide additional evidence, arguments, or testimony? Does the applicant wish to waive the period for final written argument? So we have a request for 1 week for submission of additional materials to consider here. That implies a second week then for any rebuttals. So that's 2 weeks. That gets us to, let's see, today's the 3rd, April 17th. Then the applicant gets a period for basically the last word. No new evidence submitted during that last word period, just a response to something that was submitted that the applicant would want to address, like a rebuttal or a statement that points back to something that the applicant already has submitted in the record as evidence. Any questions before we could just provide a little more discussion of that timeline? Looks like we have time, plenty of time for this.
None from me.
So 2 weeks then, so new evidence for me to consider, written statements from the general public, testimony of that nature as well. Submitted to Ben Blessing. He will forward it. He'll enter it into the record as an exhibit and advise me of the same. So the first period will end Thursday, 4 o'clock, April 10th. So let's go that 4 p.m. 4:10. That's a Thursday. Then the second period, rebuttals to that can include new evidence, but I want to primarily stick to rebuttal of something submitted during the first period. So that will be 4 p.m. Thursday, the 17th. And that's the second period. Now, the third is a little flexible, Mr. Hasten. You're not required to submit anything, but if you choose not to, please submit to Mr. Blessing a written statement confirming that you do not want to submit a final written argument and you just as soon waive the period and have the record close, or go ahead and take your 7 days and submit a final written statement. Either way, I'm just not requiring that you make a decision today because you don't see yet what has come in. Does that make sense?
Exactly, and I was gonna mention that anyway, that after that second open record period ends, we reserve the opportunity to waive the final written argument. or
Perfect.
Within a week. However it goes, we'll try and provide that to you as soon as possible. If we're gonna waive it, obviously immediately, and so that you can get a jump on your deliberations.
Of course. All right. With that, I will close the hearing, keeping the record as described. Please direct any additional questions to Mr. Blessing and any additional written statements that you have consistent with our discussion now. It was nice to meet everyone and participate, and thank you for participating in the hearing today.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.